We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Back with a whole bunch of questions again this week, and some news that I know people are excited to hear our take on. So Tom was only briefly frozen on camera. Nope, now again, who knows what'll happen? Always this way at the beginning. No one knows why, but welcome to the YouTube version if you're watching it. Tom's camera is glitchy again.
Who is it? Who's our YouTube viewer? Is it Michael?
Michael, yeah, he's in there. I don't know if we'll get to him this week. He's down the list.
Hey, Mike.
He's there.
How's it going? What's up? I'm frozen, but I'm waving.
Yeah,
I might be waving.
Yeah, you're moving now. We'll see how it goes.
I have to remind you that there's a listener of the week from me.
Oh, okay.
To remind me about that
when we get there.
So how are things, Rob? How are things?
Doing okay. I was cutting it real close on getting this topic list together for today, but here we are. Tom's got a hard out again, so that's how it goes. But it's here. It's complete. We're ready to go.
Those of you that don't understand, my hard out is because I got to drop a kid off at school by 9:10 or 9:15, and then I got to pick a different kid up from school at 1:30. So next week, my oldest is going to go. I think maybe even this week, but I think by next week my oldest will be back at school and he'll pick up the 1:30 kid.
I see.
So that will make my heart outs not quite so hard.
Okay.
But that's what's been going on, and kids are starting to go back to school, and we've kept them home this entire time. The fourth quarter, we've been watching the schools really closely as far as their numbers and stuff like that. They've kind of kept them pretty good. My youngest son, who was the most hesitant, his school has been the safest this entire time. Like we've been watching, they've had very few cases. And my eldest son, didn't want to go back until he got a second shot, and then his grades went to the toilet last week. We're like, you're going back because you're obviously not doing something. Oh no, I'm doing it. Well, if you're doing it, it would be done. And you're not doing it, so we're sending them back. He's 17, so he's had at least one shot by now. By the time he goes back, he'll have it too. So he's going back, and then my middle son, his school has been the least safe, and he is also the one who is the least trustworthy out of all my children. But he really wanted to go back, see his friends and stuff like that. Yeah. So the fourth quarter was when we kind of said, okay, the numbers are enough. And, I know that they've got the mask wearing. I've heard reports from people at schools. I know people who go there. So we kind of felt comfortable doing it. Everybody's got to do their own,
and I mean, it is area by area, region by region, certainly country by country, because United States way ahead on the vaccinations. So
I know. Yep. I'm sorry, everybody. Watching and listening to the news out of India right now just absolutely crushes me. God.
By no means is the world out of this mess yet. We're still quite a ways to go.
I have some friends that are. They were actually planning this in 2020. They were supposed to go back to India and have like the big 3-day wedding thing that they do. They were going to have I think they have a total of 3 weddings, like one in one town, one in another town, and then one here. And now they ended up just going in front of the justice of the peace. They got their parents' blessings and everything to do all that. But it's been really hard on them, to see this. So I've been reaching out to them and. Luckily their families have been safe, but man, that is just a disaster of a situation. I feel really, really bad about that. Not that I did it, I don't think.
Nope.
I don't know.
But still,
I'm a middle-class white man. I'm responsible for a lot of stuff these days. So I might have done it on accident. And if it was so, I apologize.
Still holding out.
They can just start off every podcast that way. Tom, sorry for whatever.
Right. Holding out hope because, if we stick to it, stick to the plan. Don't get impatient now when the end is in sight. So
right.
Keep it positive. Right. We will get there.
We will get there, people. We're almost to the go out and listen to something at the end of this podcast. It's going to be a momentous day.
Yes, it will.
All right, this podcast, this is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can also come to avrant.com, leave us a comment there, facebook.com/avrantpodcast, youtube.com/avrant, where you can say hi to Michael. Hi, Mike. Now he only can watch the YouTube videos. I mean, he can listen to them too. I mean, he doesn't have to watch. I understand. You can contact us directly, Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter is at First Reflects. I am Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is at avrant_Tom. I almost said at avrant_Rob for some reason. That was weird. Let's thank our listeners of the week. Become a listener of the week to support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com. Click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. Send you to a PayPal donation site, which will give some money from you, take some money from you and give most of it to us. So you can use your PayPal account or you can use a credit card. We don't see any of those deets. We just get the muns. So we want to thank Ari for doing that this week. Thank you very much, Ari.
Yes, Ari, thank you very much for the PayPal donation. And I guess the muns, that definitely cannot take off. No one is using that. That is a Tom exclusive.
That is a Tom exclusive. I think I trademarked that. Don't worry. We also want to thank our 124 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon is a service that you signed up to become a subscribing member, a contributing supporter of this podcast. Contributing supporter. I like that. So you contribute money every month, and they take it from you and give most of it to us. So we want to thank our 124 patrons, including Bertrand over there.
Indeed. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast for anyone who would like to sign up for an automatic monthly donation. Thanks very much to our 124 patrons, including Bertrand. Looked like Tom had a comment to say.
The Muns thing is the lack of coffee. I come home and I'm so desperate to get writing so I can get something up on AV Gadgets as fast as possible that I don't make coffee, and I'm like, oh crap, the podcast's coming. I need coffee. I need this. I need that. So the coffee hasn't kicked in yet. So thanks for the Muns, Bertrand.
Yes, and the other 123 patrons, and That's Ari on PayPal.
That's right. So if you can't support us financially, we understand. So if you do support us, if you do something to support us, we will mention you, especially if you tell us what you did, because we won't always know. So Eric selected the AVRant podcast when he got to the "Where did you hear about us" section of registering his SVS surround speakers and subwoofer that he bought. Jason wrote to Gary Yakubian about the possibility of buying up the Harmony division from Logitech. Gary said, "We are looking at this. Stay tuned." That's a Rob thing if that ends up happening. And I have to think, oh crap, it scrolled past.
Right.
His name is Kerry, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
With a C
so Kerry,
or a K?
I don't know. With the K.
Okay.
Okay. So he's been listening to the podcast, and I've talked a little bit about cycling. So so what he did is he reached out and just said, hey, when you're ready to buy a bike, here's the no BS stuff that you need to know, which was good because it's very easy to fall down. Bikes are like boats. You just keep throwing money at it, hoping you'll have more fun. So, he kind of cut through all that, and it was, kind of gave me the, listen, you can spend a lot of money on this, but sure. If you just buy this stuff, you're like 90% of the way there, and that's the sort of advice I like.
Throwing thank you very money much, at it, hoping to have more fun on a home theater podcast. Never heard of such a thing.
Never heard. It's insanity, I tell you. So thank you, Eric, for looking up at SVS, Jason for writing to SVS, and Carrie for helping me out with some bike advice.
Yes, indeed. Eric, thanks very much for, talking us up to SVS on the registration form there. It's nice that they include that option. Jason, talking to Carrie Yakubian at SVS directly. Man, oh man.
That's all you.
He's teasing us along with this. I mean, look, if he looks at the financials of it and goes, there's no viable way for us to take on this business as part of SVS. Well, please don't be upset, because that is more than a reasonable conclusion I can imagine coming to.
Well, I really think it's going to end up being like, how much do you want to sell it for?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, because if they don't want to sell it, if they just want to be like, nah, we'll just let it die, then
indeed
there's not going to be anything SVS can do about it.
But we do have to say that
don't blame them if they're looking at it. At least somebody's looking at it.
Well, that's just it. The answer is far from we have absolutely zero interest in this. Sorry, but take care. That's not what Gary's saying. So I mean, there's some possibility there. And then Gary, thank you for offering that information to Tom on his cycling.
I appreciate it.
It's going to be nice.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So whenever my wife lets me buy a bike, which the current moment is looking in the 2 to 5 year range.
Okay.
So I think the goal for me is to ride my bike so hard it just breaks in half.
Sure.
Then that's how I'll get a new bike. As it's aluminum, that's not going to happen. But we also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going during this pandemic year plus from Kevin, Andrew, Ari, Raul, Mark, Stan, Terry, and Michael. And Terry is part of the 2 Hour Plus Club on YouTube. So Terry, say hi to Mike.
That's right. We know we have 2 viewers. So Kevin, Andrew, Ari, Raul, Mark, Terry, Stan, and Michael, thank you all very much for the notes of gratitude, for the notes of encourment. It is very much appreciated.
Terry, if you had written in just like 1 week earlier, we'd be saying hi to you every week.
That's
but instead, it's Mike. All right, let's talk about the news, because this is what we all really want to talk about. After this, you guys can just do whatever. But so Apple had their big event, which was... It was a thing. I watched some of it.
Sure.
I watched the part that I was really curious about, which was the calibration issue, which we'll talk about here in a second.
We'll talk about that.
And I was like, well, not quite the visionary company that I used to. They were coming out with stuff where people like, what do we even need this for? I've never heard of such a thing as a phone it's got no buttons. It has no buttons. Are you supposed to use a phone with no buttons? They're like, everyone's going to want this. You're like, nah, I don't really want this. And then next thing you know, it's like, if I don't get one of these things right now, I am literally going to have to mug somebody for money. So Apple announced their new version of the Apple TV 4K. Frankly, not a lot was changed. Pricing and storage options remained the same at $180 for the 32 gig version, $200 for the 64 gig version. The shape and size of the hardware remain the same. Inside, it's got the A12 Bionic chip now, which sounds really impressive, and some HDMI 2.1 features. So let's start with the good stuff. All right. It's got a new Siri remote. It's a bit bigger. It's all aluminum. And instead of the square touchpad with a single click that a lot of people hated, there's now a circular touchpad with a central click and 4 distinct up, down, left, right clicks. You can also drag your finger on the outer edge of the circle to fast forward and rewind, a la iPods of a million years ago.
They love coming back to that.
Yeah, they do. I actually do like that function. I'll be honest with you. That is not my least favorite thing that Apple has ever. I kind of like that. And then the button to activate Siri has been moved to the side edge. I didn't know there was one of those, so whatever. So if you're fine with your current Apple TV 4K or HD,
yeah, the Apple TV HD, because there's a
I didn't realize
there's an HD version and a 4K version.
You can buy the new remote separately for $60 if you just want the remote.
Yeah,
I guess it'll still work. So whatever. So it's got multi-user sign-in now. Finally, hey, welcome to Netflix a la 10 years ago.
That's right.
But they're cutting edge. It's Apple. It'll play back Dolby Vision footage that you shot on your iPhone in 60 frames per second now, instead of being limited to 30 frames per second. So
huge.
Now for the not so good stuff. Mostly the confusing marketing. They keep touting the high frame rate HDR, but it's not 120 frames per second. It's just 60, which is high compared to 30. And 30 is high compared to 15. So, it's all high frame rate. You just have to make a number lower.
Weird thing to tout high frame rate, and then it's 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
Which,
the frame rate we've been having for like ever.
I mean, I guess the whole movie thing, right? Yeah, Gemini Man. Well, Gemini Man was 120 in theaters.
That was one. Yeah.
But it was 60 on the Ultra HD Blu-ray release because that's as high as the format goes. And that was considered high frame rate because, it's higher than 24. So, all right, okay, that's their version of high frame rate. But they were touting that a lot for some reason. I don't know who's demanding it. I don't know who's going to make them buy that one over the
just want to say high.
But,
you know what I mean? I think that's, there's too, and I find this too often in home theater and gadgets in particular, but specific words cue consumers that this is somehow better, and saying high frame rate, even if it's just a little bit higher than the other one, like 6. It's 24 to 30. It's 6. They're like, oh, it must be better. It's high frame rate. Just like having more watts. So this one has 105. This one has 100. This one must be 5 better, which is clearly better. So anyways, the A12 Bionic is already kind of an old chip. It's from the 2018, the iPhone XS.
Yep.
Extra small.
No, it wasn't extra small.
That was the one. That was one that was like that Zoolander phone.
There never was that. Yeah, but no, we had the iPhone X in 2017, and then or iPhone 10 as it was, and then iPhone 10s the following year. So that's when the A12 Bionic came along. So that's the chip they're using. And I mean, the only reason I remark on that is I'm a little bit surprised because one of the things, of course, is gaming, right? With the Apple Arcade, I was like, really? You're gonna go back to that chip when gaming is supposed to be a thing, but whatever. That's what they did.
So there's a fair bit of hype about the new color balance feature, which is the thing I wrote about on AV Gadgets, which is also available for the old hardware, by the way. So if you have one, a 4K or a HD, I guess, you can start using it right now. Now, they said that you had to use the 12, but my understanding is that as long as it has a the face unlock feature on your phone, you can use that phone, whatever that
face
phone
unlock,
was.
And you have to be on 14.5 for iOS and for TV OS. Yeah.
Right. All right. So you basically put your phone up to the screen, and it flashes at a specific spot in the screen, and it flashes some stuff, and people are complaining about it quite a bit. About like you have to hold the phone extremely still, and it fails a lot and everything. So you hold it. It's supposed to calibrate the TV to compensate if you're using an inaccurate picture mode on your TV. Okay, and I don't have a direct display TV, so projector is not going to work here.
Indeed.
Plus, I don't have an iPhone.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that aren't going to work for me. So, but Chris Heinonen, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Heinonen. And David Katzenmeier posted their preliminary results on Twitter, and it essentially does nothing. I actually saw a video.
Yeah.
That was posted the day of, or maybe the day after that announcement, where they just showed going through it, and they showed that you could click on and off.
Sure.
I was like, as the person was clicking on and off, I was like, I'm not seeing anything. Are you seeing anything? I'm not seeing anything. So at least if you're using an accurate picture mode on your TV, it doesn't mess that up, although it did make things slightly worse for Chris's first attempt, which can happen. But if you're using an inaccurate picture mode, it doesn't come anywhere close to performing a calibration. Chris found that it slightly improved the white, yellow, and cyan coordinates, but was still just within a margin of error. And David agreed, just use an accurate picture mode to begin with is the takeaway, which is exactly what I said in the AV Gadgets article. I'm like, this is a feature that we needed like 10 years ago, maybe 5, but definitely 10 years ago we would have been like ecstatic to have this, because
if it did anything.
Well, even if it doesn't do much, it was still better than what we had, because back then we were like, if you want to get an accurate picture mode, you can try to do these things, but it's going to be really hard, and you gotta hire a professional. This at least has the potential to do something good.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that it seemingly doesn't do anything right now. Like, I don't know if this is just a matter of like nobody has the brand new second generation Apple TV 4K yet, so we can't confirm or deny that it maybe does something on the new hardware, and for some reason isn't doing anything on the older Apple TV 4K, the first generation hardware. I have no idea if that has anything to do with it. There shouldn't be any reason why it would, but I'm honestly kind of surprised, because usually, to tout this feature and Apple puts it out and then it like when you measure it does nothing. That's weird. I was thinking, even if it doesn't,
almost like they're a cable manufacturer, a high-end cable manufacturer. Here's a cable; it has a battery in it.
Yeah, but I was thinking, even if it didn't do a good color calibration, what I suspected it was gonna do is the number one thing with most people's TVs, because most people don't go into an accurate picture mode, and that means most people's TVs are too blue. Right? Usually the color temperature is way too cool, and the number one thing that is inaccurate with the vast majority of people's TVs is that the white point is far too blue. Now, I thought in my head, I don't think they would decrease blue, because nobody wants their image to ever get even a tiny bit dimmer. I thought what they were going to do was pump up yellow. I thought that would be the thing they would do, because that is something they could do across the board, pump up yellow, which increases red and green, and offsets blue, pulls the white point back closer to where it was supposed to be, while simultaneously making some images even brighter than they used to be, which is something that your average consumer would go, oh, yeah, I'm okay with that. That's what I suspected. It doesn't even do that. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm not surprised, and I'm not convinced that this is the final iteration we're going to see of this thing.
Well, especially when people start writing articles about it and showing the measurements, I think Apple's going to have to respond in some way, or
they're going to have
just
to do
remove
something.
the feature.
Right. So it's TVs and displays and projectors and stuff. If you're not buying like a projector that's not made for home theater, or a basement Amazon knockoff brand of projector that's this 2 inches square, and so touting 1,000 million lumens or something, you almost certainly have an accurate picture mode available to you.
Right.
And there's just so little reason for this feature to exist. But people are like, I was reading threads and comments and stuff, and between people saying, basically, I don't need this because I have my TV accurately calibrated, and the response from the Apple pundits being, well, was it professionally calibrated? And I just wanted to go through and said, it doesn't need to be, dummy, for each one of them.
This certainly isn't it. And even if they do improve it, I never think it's going to get to a professional calibration. Plus, it would only ever apply to the Apple TV 4K. It is adjusting the output of the Apple TV 4K device. It is not adjusting any of the settings in your television. So it doesn't apply to any other source, including anything that's built into the TV. Wouldn't be affected by this whatsoever. So kind of a bust, but there you go.
It's unfortunate, but I mean, like I said, between the people just saying they didn't need it, the other half of it was just people thanking Apple.
Right.
Basically saying, thank you, Apple. This is something I definitely needed. I'm like,
well, maybe the safer thing is to do nothing, because people will still claim that it improved their picture. Placebo effect, good on you.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna, whatever. All right. We previously mentioned Sony Pictures' deal with Netflix, giving them exclusive streaming rights for the next several years. Well, it turns out those are only timed exclusives. Sony Pictures has signed another deal with Disney that will bring their releases to Disney Plus. And yes, that means the MCU Spider-Man movies will be available alongside the rest of the MCU eventually. Disney Plus won't get Sony movies until the time frame when those movies are also available on broadcast TV networks, so Netflix gets a pretty long window. So...
but not the entire 5 to 6 years. You certainly get, movies on broadcast TV networks in a shorter time frame than that. So there you go.
Yeah. So HDR10 isn't dead yet.
10 plus.
I didn't know it was dying. 10 plus, sorry.
You got to get that plus in there.
Yeah, the newest Roku devices were just announced with HDR10 plus support, and Paramount Plus has signed on to use the format. So,
Paramount Plus. There you go. Yeah. I mean, previously we
It's not free though, right? Paramount Plus is not free. There's not a free version of that. Because my kids are convinced that it's free, and I keep wanting to look it up, and I keep not caring.
Yeah, there is a tier that's free, because Paramount Plus used to be CBS All Access.
Right.
So CBS All Access had a version that was free with ads that didn't have all the content. Oh wait, was that only Peacock? I'm getting those two mixed up. Peacock and CBS All Access. I'm getting those mixed up. I don't remember.
Can somebody just go around and like club these little ones to death and then merge them all into one again? Can we just get them all back on Hulu, because it's not going to work.
Not when Disney owns Hulu now. Not going to happen.
Well, they should get together and make a new thing. Hulu's a dumb name anyway, so I've never liked that. All right, comments from our listeners. Andrew wanted to throw one more vote towards Google Assistant as a preferred voice assistant. I am leaning in that direction pretty heavily. He tried Apple HomeKit as well. Google Home was much more intuitive to use, and it integrated more easily with his home theater setup. His wife also found it easier to use. One of the problems we're having right now with our She Who Shall Not Be Named on our Echo Dot is that they keep we have like 4 of them in the house, and only 2 of them work right now. They just stop connecting to the Wi-Fi. The connection to for the Bluetooth connection to the speaker, which used to be solid unless there was a microwave going, now is just garbled most of the time, and we can't get it. And I can't figure out if it's the speaker or whatever. It's just, I don't understand. So anyways, I am leaning in that direction.
Okay.
Will has heard us mention the 2-channel Class D amps from Dayton and Audio Source several times, but right now they're often out of stock. Yeah, as is everything. So for anyone looking for an alternative, Amazon Basics has a very similar looking model for $127. It's an 80 watt by 2 channels, Class D with 12 volt trigger and auto sensing options for power. So it's probably OEM'd. Yeah, Amazon probably called up the factory and said,
right.
We'll pay you more money just so that we can undercut everybody else. All right, whatever. Jeez. When the antitrust laws finally catch up with Amazon, it's going to be like AT&T. Remember when the AT&T got split up many, many moons ago into all the different little telecom companies or whatever? It's going to happen. Amazon, you're too big. I'm sorry. And I use Amazon. I'm not afraid to admit I use Amazon all the time, and I kind of like it in that I feel like I can abuse Amazon.
Right. No guilt.
I don't feel guilty about it. But this did happen to me the other day, and I haven't rectified it yet, but I plan on it. I ordered a thing that I needed, which was it's a blend. I broke the blender cup. I don't know what you call that. The vase part of it. I knocked it off the table and shattered into a million glass pieces. So I ordered a new one, but the new one is not the right size. I mean, it still fits in there, but I don't have it's not the right top. It wasn't the same thing. So I went to return it, and Amazon's like, "Oh, here's your money back. You can keep it."
Okay.
And I could see on the box that it came from a specific, like there's labeling on it that says that it came from a specific place. Like this manufacturer or this store sent it to me through Amazon, via Amazon, and I feel bad because I want to send it back. I don't want it. I mean, I can use it, but I don't want to use it because I didn't pay for it now. It's free, and I feel really bad. So stuff like that bothers me. But if it's just like Amazon Basics, blah, 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 I'm like, yeah, you guys, free shipping both ways. I'm just going to try it out. Martin shared the massive subwoofer comparison spreadsheet being maintained by someone with the user handle @SweetChaos. I told my kids, man, you guys got to think about your handles online. You got to make one and stick with it and make sure it's not something stupid. Sweet Chaos isn't that bad. There's a lot of worse ones out there.
Oh, yeah, there's worse than that. Those are recognizable words. You can.
Yeah, So I'm like, don't. I won't tell you what it was, but I found one of my kids had made a Reddit handle, and I was like, if your mom ever saw this name. Oh, it's supposed to be funny. I'm like, it's not funny. It's stupid, and you're stupid. So change it. Anyways, Sweet basic specs, prices, and CEA 2010 measurements, if available, are all included to help users look up and compare as many subwoofers as possible. So that's nice.
Yeah, it's a handy data spreadsheet there. So if you want to look up information, quickly search through. It is a huge database and just being maintained for free. They're not putting any ads on it or anything like that. It's just because this guy wanted it and decided to share it. So that's nice.
That's good. Or gal. Could be a gal. Sweet Chaos. Could be a dude.
That's true.
Yeah. JR, the panels he ordered from Gick finally arrived, so he shared a quick photo, not pictured, are additional bass traps for the soffit above his couch and the rear corner. So he's got, it looks like 4 hanging from the ceiling, big ones.
Yes,
too.
big ones. Yeah, those look like at least
6 inches.
Yeah, that looks thicker than 4 inches. I gotta say, those look like the monster bass traps. So,
and then he's got the ones up front that have the diffusion plates on the top.
Yep,
right behind his main speakers. So that's
Impression series.
And then he's got green lighting behind his TV, which I don't know why, but he's got it. So there it is. And this is a really nice looking theater.
It's very visually attractive when it's all lit up like that. Nice.
All right. Let's get to some questions here. Eric on Facebook. Eric currently has a 5.1 configuration. He wants to add a single pair of overhead speakers. He has a vaulted ceiling that is about 10 feet high directly above his couch, but then it slopes downward in front of him so that it's 8 feet high above his TV. And front speakers. He looked up Dolby's diagrams for a 5.1.2 configuration. One of them showed the single pair of overhead speakers positioned in front of the seat, so they are halfway between the front speakers and the surround speakers. But another diagram showed the single pair of overhead speakers basically directly above his seats. Yeah, those diagrams suck.
And those are current. I was surprised because I was like, I wonder if, like if you just do a Google image search or something. No, that's current on their website. That's the way they show up right now. It's ridiculous.
I in fact, on AV Gadgets, I wrote how to position your side surrounds and your Atmos speakers, and I was like, don't look at the diagrams. Like, every diagram is wrong. Like the one you see on your receiver, wrong. Like when you go up, and it's like Atmos is like, these are the speakers you're going to test. You're like, if you put your speakers there, Atmos will not. Odyssey will not like you because you have put them all in the wrong spot. But they put them there because it's easier to display it, visually. Mm-hmm. But this is. Whatever. So for a little more clarification, he plans to stick with just 2 overhead speakers for the time being. If he ever upgrades to 4 overheads in the future, he's fine with moving the speakers since he plans to mount them on the ceiling with pivot mounts. He isn't installing in the ceiling. So can we shed some light on where to mount them? Okay. So yes, I don't know where this one picture comes from. The one where it's like way in front of the couch. I mean, that looks like top fronts, but yes, they should be directly over your head. They should be
much more like the second diagram that you came across. Those are the angles that are listed for top middles. Now, top middles is what you install when you only have 2 overhead speakers. Right. When you do not have 4, the go-to recommendation is to install top middles. The recommended elevation angle for top middles is 80 degrees So if straight ahead at your eye line is 0 degrees, then you're going up 80 degrees, which means it's almost directly above you, just ever so slightly in front of you. That is the recommended positioning for top middles, but it can be anywhere from a 65-degree elevation angle to a 100-degree elevation angle, which would mean ever so slightly behind you. So that's where you would go. If you want to see diagrams that aren't quite so bad, in the Dolby Atmos for Home setup guidelines, which is a PDF document that Dolby has.
People love opening those.
But those ones at least are good. I don't know why the ones on their website are so far off.
They're terrible.
Anyway,
They're just awful. The other thing is every diagram on Dolby's website has every single speaker pointed directly at your head.
Yes.
Do not do that. Don't do that at all. Let's see what the second question is here. Since he will be using pivot mounts and the ceiling is vaulted, would there be any benefit to mounting the overhead slightly in front of the seats? Maybe follow the natural slope of the ceiling so the speakers are aiming more directly at the seats? Or should they go straight overhead and then use the pivot mounts to aim them straight down? What is best? The second one. But directly overhead, facing straight down.
Yes. Once again, perhaps ever so slightly in front of you, like the 80-degree elevation instead of actual 90, but and then straight.
Mine are
straight
directly down. Overhead if you sit on the couch,
sure.
And then when you recline, they're a little bit in front of you.
There you go.
so that's what they are.
Exactly that.
Kevin has a remodel underway. Boy, when I scanned that sentence, I thought it said runway model. And I was like, this is going to be a great question, but it is not. He has a remodel underway in his kitchen. Some of the walls are being taken down to the studs. The plan is to install a 43-inch Samsung The Frame TV within a niche in one of the walls so that it sits perfectly flush. A pair of Sonos in-ceiling Mag 6 speakers that he already owns will provide the sound powered by a Sonos app. As we can guess, the idea is for everything to look flush and nearly invisible. So what would we advise when it comes to a subwoofer? He isn't going to use this kitchen system for critical listening, but there will be music playing quite often. He isn't sure the in-ceiling speakers will be fully satisfying on their own. With the walls already being open, he was thinking an in-wall subwoofer might be the way to go. But as much as only a few $100s, HTD sells their HDX IWS10. So that's an in-wall sub 10-inch driver, probably.
That is exactly it. Yes.
And that the subwoofer and the amp cost $330 together. Would that be a good choice? Is there a different, not too expensive in-wall sub that we recommend instead, or would it be a waste of money no matter what? Mag 6s, right? So there's a 6-inch driver in there. That's not going to have a ton of bass, but I guess in most of the time in these sorts of situations, I'm like, it just feels like you're going to spend a lot, even if you spend a couple $100. Like either you spend a bunch of money and get good bass, or you just say forget it and just live with not having any bass at all. That's kind of the way I feel about it. I don't know. Rob, what suggestions do you have for him?
So I wanted to address that HTD in-wall sub first because I'm not a big fan of that design. It's got no backer box. It leaves no room for a backer box in a wall enclosure, unless you're building a much deeper wall than normal.
Than regular.
But there's not really any way to... it sits a little bit proud of the drywall, and then there's no room behind it to build an enclosure. So I'm not a huge fan of that design, I gotta say. Now, I don't want to leave you completely without any options to at least consider. Like one of the other big reasons I'm in agreement with Tom for the most part that I might strongly consider just not having a subwoofer is because positioning. Once you install a subwoofer in the wall, there's no way you can move it if it turns out that like the thing is you're going to be moving around your kitchen. It's not like you have a locked listening position in your kitchen, but there probably is a spot in your kitchen where you spend more time than elsewhere in the kitchen. And I mean,
how do you know where to put the sub based on
well, that's
that?
just
you have to buy another sub and then put it in all the spots around the kitchen and hope. I mean, it's
I mean, if you go and install this in-wall subwoofer and then it turns out that a spot where you do spend a significant amount of time standing or sitting is right where there's a massive null or a massive peak, and now
the peak would be worse.
There's nothing you can do. I mean, I guess you could. Well, you'd have to get a separate thing to equalize it. I mean, it just gets overly complicated.
My suggestion would be, like, rather than spend the money on a sub, take those Sonos 6 and get better.
Well, get the Mag 8s.
Yeah, something that just get the larger ones that have more bass.
That is a possibility.
I don't know how much those cost, so it could be
well,
like
when they're on
$1,000
sale,
difference.
they're reasonable. When they're not on sale, I think
Right.
they're unreasonable. But they go on sale very often at Best
So
Buy.
if it were me, this is what I would do. I would either live with the 6s, I would consider getting the 8s or
Okay.
something else. I mean, I don't know if there's other options out there for you, and I am always against putting a subwoofer in a wall. Almost.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I did want to mention there is that very slim subwoofer from, and I'm going to point you to the one at Monoprice. The basic same thing is sold at other ones too, but Monoprice is the only one with a 12-inch version, and it's still only $200 for the 12-inch version. So that is something that you could consider. It is their SSW12. That is
The one that you can slide underneath your couch.
Slide underneath a couch,
Yeah.
but it actually comes with brackets that you can wall mount it. Now that is of course not going to be flush mount. It is not going to be invisible, but it doesn't have to take up floor space. It can be mounted on a wall, and since it's not in the wall, it gives you the option of being able to move it around your room after the fact, even if it turns out that the spot where the sub is placed gives you really bad response at an important location in your kitchen. Now, if you're just like, no way, no how, and I would understand that because it's not the look you were going for. If you really do just, you've tried it without any subwoofer, you've, I don't know, experimented with a sub that you have on hand and found a location that's going to work where you actually could put an in-wall sub, and you're just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Then one that I can point you to is actually from Outdoor Speaker Depot. I'm going to point you to their SL800D. That is an active 8-inch driver with a 10-inch passive radiator, but it comes in a sealed enclosure. It doesn't have an open back. You don't have to build a separate enclosure. It's ready to go, sealed enclosure. That costs $220 on its own. It does need an amplifier, so you'd have to buy the amplifier separately. But that doesn't have to be crazy expensive. It's looking for 200 or 300 watts. Then another option that you could consider, again from Outdoor Speaker Depot, since you're putting the speakers in the ceiling, they have an in-ceiling subwoofer. It's a 10-inch, $300. Again, that needs an amplifier on top of it, so $300 is just for it, but it's a 10-inch that goes in the ceiling. It comes with a bracket to mount it in the ceiling. Now, this one does not come with a backer box, but at least in the ceiling joists, you typically have enough space behind it that you could build an enclosure. This thing is looking for 1.5 cubic feet for an enclosure space. So that is something that could be done.
I mean, what are you playing in here? Are you going to be like watching movies or something?
Music.
I mean, is it organ music that you listen to on the regular? Because if it's not, then speakers that play down to 80 hertz, 60 hertz, man, that's all you really need in there. And doing much more, trying to put a subwoofer in here just to fill out that bottom end, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think you're going to get that much use out of it, and I think that it's going to cause more problems than it solves. So that's
concerned about that. Yeah, the Outdoor Speaker Depot ones are 30, 35 hertz extension type subs, which, if that's what you want for music, because, music doesn't typically go lower than 32 hertz anyway. So that's those possibilities are there. You can take a look at those Outdoor Speaker Depot ones if you want. I would prefer the slim model from Monoprice as being able to be moved around, but I can understand if that doesn't fit the looks. There you go.
All right. Infinite Gary, speaking of subwoofers and walls and ceilings, Infinite Gary finally got around to watching Tenet. There were lots of jokes and discussion online back when it first came out about how the soundtrack is so loud that it drowns out most of the dialogue, much like Interstellar and Muffled Bane. Christopher Nolan has defended the sound mixing. It's intentional, and that he wants you to barely be able to make out what people are saying much of the time, because that's what you go to a movie for.
I mean, he has said it. He's said it outright.
People get, and this happens in the AV industry too, when they get people around them that are just like, you're brilliant. You're the best.
Yes, man.
You just start believing that crap. I mean, this feels, I don't know Christopher Nolan. He could be a very nice man. He could be very humble for all I know. But it feels very much like he's got a bunch of people around him going, you're an auteur, you're the best, you're the best director of our generation, you're the next Scorsese or whatever. And he's buying all that. Well, Gary turned up the volume until voices sounded reasonably clear, but then he would get absolutely blasted by the soundtrack and it would still overwhelm the dialogue. He settled on finding a very loud section of the movie and setting his volume based on that. He kept turning up his center speaker trim level until he could make out the voices. That ended up being a 10 dB boost to the center. God. It still wasn't perfect, but he enjoyed it a lot more that way. So Gary's theater has been professionally calibrated. He's using Anthem ARC or ARC. He should be pretty darn close to industry standards. And Chris Nolan, because we're on short names with
We're
him?
familiar now, yes.
Yeah, it says it's supposed to sound that way, but really? Do we agree with with what Gary did in this particular case, or do we think it's wrong to alter creative intent to make watching the movie way more enjoyable? When an art piece leaves, a piece of art leaves the artist, it is no longer theirs, except in the case of George Lucas, who apparently thinks he can keep adjusting things forever and ever until death does him part. But for the rest of us, when the art leaves you, when you as an artist let it go out into the world, you no longer have control over how people enjoy it. You know, I think of like some of those modern art pieces where they found out like 10 years later that's been hanging upside down the entire time. you know, like people were enjoying it. Who gives a crap? The artist was like, that's not the right way you're supposed to hang that thing. And everybody's like, dude, you threw paint at the freaking, come on. There is no up on that thing.
Or it's just a blank canvas sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Still
right?
upside down, but yeah.
Still upside down. So, yeah, I think that if that's the way you enjoy it, that's the way you should enjoy it. And I got no problems with that whatsoever. And Christopher Nolan can suck it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if he wants his dialogue to be unintelligible, stop making movies or make them silent. You know, I mean, Eraserhead was silent, right?
I think that's what he wants, is to go back to silent films. I think that's really what's on his mind.
He wants IMAX shaped. Was he the one that was like 4:3? No, that was Snyder.
Snyder. Yeah. Although, I mean,
so he wants IMAX,
his IMAX, so.
IMAX, and then black and white silent movies with one dude with a harpsichord in the corner playing the music as the.
Well, no, I think in his case it might be a pipe organ just blasting at full volume,
blasting 12 hertz notes the entire time.
He loves that interstellar wham. So. Yeah. No, Gary, you are well within your rights to do whatever the heck you want in your personal home theater. That's right. I've got no beef with this. You enjoyed the movie more this way. Have at it. I've got no problem with that. I probably wouldn't do it with myself just because I'm lazy and I don't want to bother turning up the trim level. And I'm like, okay, that's the way they mix this movie.
This just tells me right now that I'm never watching this movie with my wife.
Right. I mean, turn on the subtitles. That's...
Yeah, but I guess that's what you could have done too, I guess. It's just turn on the subtitles. I've done that before.
I still haven't checked. I mean, the joke was always that, you know, Christopher Nolan's going to have such control that when you do turn on the subtitles, it's just going to say, you know, like...
garbled.
Yeah, or...
garbled sound.
Indecipherable, unintelligible dialogue. That's all it's going to say down there.
Yeah, it should just say, if I wanted you to hear it, you could hear it, dummy.
That's right, yeah.
Bottom of it. It's just Christopher Nolan giving you the finger at the bottom. That's the subtitles. Suck it. Andrew says a couple of years ago, we answered a bunch of his questions, and that helped his theater build and in his basement go much more smoothly. So now that his theater is nearly done, he's back to ask some more. The room is dedicated and closed, 14 by 20 feet long. 2 rows of seats, but the front row is definitely the primary and much more important set of three seats. So it's 3 seats in the row, and it's the front row. There's a wide soffit on the right side of the ceiling going all the way along the room, front to back. The rest of the ceiling will be drop tile, and that has yet to be installed. Mm-hmm. It's about the last thing for the room itself. They'll just be standard fiberglass acoustic tiles. The flooring is vinyl. About 35% is covered by an area rug. He painted the walls in soffit dark gray, and he's thinking he will paint the ceiling tiles too to match. He's already made and mounted 11 DIY absorption panels, 15 inches wide by 47 inches tall and 3 inches deep for each panel, with a half-inch air gap behind each one. 2 of those panels are on his front wall, on either side of his 120-inch silver ticket screen. You definitely listen to us if you bought that. The other 9 panels are on his side walls, more or less evenly spaced, and there's a door on the right wall, so that's why it's an odd number of panels. The projector is an Epson 4000. Receiver is a Denon X3700H. Speakers are all Clips reference series, including 4 in-ceilings, and he has a single SVS PB2000 subwoofer for now. He'd like to add a second sub in the future, but for now his budget is maxed out. So we're looking at this. Is that the door? Is that the wood thing is the door?
That's I don't think that's actually the door into this room, because there's a door on the back wall as well, a white door right in the middle.
Oh,
of the
yeah,
back
there
wall.
is. I see the white door. Yeah.
Although I don't know. I don't know what the layout of the basement is and what leads into what, but there are two doors in this room, right? In the one in the middle of the back wall, and then a looks like a bifolding or double sliding door on the right,
sliding, like pocket
wall.
door.
Yeah, pocket door. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the ceiling is still completely open. I imagine that this the drop ceiling is going to drop down to where the soffit is? Is that?
I don't know if it's going to come all the way down to that height or still.
No, the projector doesn't look like it'll let that happen. Oh, my ear itches.
Well, it might. I think the projector's below the bottom of the soffit. It's just a bit of optical illusion there. But yeah, I don't know if he's planning to have the drop ceiling be even with the lowered height of the soffit, or if it's going to the soffit is still going to be a little bit lower. But regardless, there's going to be a drop.
I don't know how painting the ceiling tiles will affect the acoustic.
Well, that's actually one of his questions, so we'll answer that when we get to that part
specifically.
I
like the placement of his panels look kind of nice. I would put 2 more on this back wall flanking that door.
Well, that's another one of the questions.
Well, I'm answering all the questions already, Rob. Stop it. So he hasn't treated the back wall yet. There's a door right in the middle of the back wall, but ample space on either side to mount more panels. He's held off because he wasn't sure if he should make more absorption panels or if the panels on the back wall should be diffusion or maybe combo panels. Regardless, he'd like to make them himself, but what types of panels do we think we should make? And if they should be diffusion panels, should they be skyline or quadratic or something? I just put regular old panels back there, right back there on either side of that door, and I'd put corner traps in the corners and call it a day. I think it looks good. I mean, I think you only do it in one. I don't know where's his other. I don't see his sub anywhere.
He's got a single sub in the rear left corner at the moment.
I can't see it.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden by the top edge of the leftmost seat of the front there. But there is a rectangle back there.
I can see
straight below his surround back speaker in the rear left corner.
I think I would just put a regular panel back there. I don't see any problem. You don't have a lot of, because your floor is not carpet. You will have acoustic tiles in the ceiling, but your floor is not carpet, so you don't have any absorption down there. So I think just absorption is what you need. I mean, you could put diffusion. I mean, you could. I don't see why I would do that, though. I think I would just stick with absorption.
Yeah, one of the things that's been mentioned by some like professional acousticians and professional room designers is that theoretically you can treat all acoustic issues with absorption only. It would require specific depths and getting into membranes and things like that to treat all frequencies that way. But it can all be done with absorption only. Where diffusion comes in is when there is such a thing as over-absorbing in a room. I don't think you're in danger of that.
I have done it in a room before,
right.
And it's extreme. It's like people walk in and go, "What's going on in this room exactly?"
I mean, you've still got a pretty sizable amount of reflective surfaces in this room. It's great that you have some of these panels. He's like, as soon as he put them in there, he noticed a difference. There's no way that it did nothing. It definitely cut down on reverb and echo. Adding more absorption only, no diffusion, I see that doing no harm in this particular room. You're not in danger of over absorbing, and that is certainly easier to build. It's easier to implement, and that is the way that I would approach that in this setup.
Yeah.
And I definitely would put some on the back wall for sure.
So will the fiberglass ceiling tiles do anything acoustically? What about after they're painted? Well, they should do something. I mean, but only at the highest frequencies. Mostly what you want to do, in my opinion, is, because the bass is what you want to absorb in here, is above the acoustic tiles, which the bass will pass right through those things, no problem, or around them or whatever. Just fill the top of it with regular old cheap insulation, but that pink stuff or whatever's on sale at Home Depot, like the big rolls. Just roll it on up there.
The stuff that they throw up in the attic spaces of garages, which is the white light cheap as chip stuff. But fill all those joist bays up in your ceiling with that stuff. If you do paint ceiling tiles with just regular paint, I mean, that's just pretty much going to become a reflective surface.
I would not. I would buy panels that were a color, like the color you want.
Well, I'm thinking black, because I mean, you can get black ceiling tiles, which, like, understand that maybe you're thinking, I don't want a black ceiling, but it's ceiling tiles, and you already have black accents in the form of your panels elsewhere in the room. If you just went with black ceiling tiles, it's not going to look out of place in this room at all.
Right.
I would opt for that rather than trying to paint them.
Yeah, I don't think painting is the way to go. I think I would just buy the color that, if it's not black, if it's gray, or if it's, even if it's white, just don't paint them. Yeah,
you've got white trim in here, so even if you went with standard white ceiling tiles, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah. So he's never measured acoustics before. In fact, Odyssey Multi-EQ XT32 was his first time experiencing any sort of acoustic measurements in EQ. So would he benefit from buying a UMic 1 and using it with Room EQ Wizard? I would buy the second sub, and that's all I would do, to be honest with you. I don't really place the second sub properly, and like you don't need to worry about it as much.
Well, it's confirming everything visually, right? That's where we're getting to.
I know, but if you confirm... Okay, wait a second. So what is confusing him the most is, let's say he sees something in RumiQ Wizard that looks like it needs correction. What then? Would he take what RumiQ Wizard shows him and actually implement a correction? Could he manually adjust Odyssey somehow? Well, that's where you get into problems.
Not to mention, especially if it's your first time looking at it, you're going to see squiggles that
you'll be like, oh my God,
you're going to freak out about because they look bad on the graph, and we can promise you there is a ton that shows up as squiggles on graphs that you absolutely cannot hear. But nevertheless, It is a freaky looking thing at first.
So in order to adjust like whatever you might see in EQ Wizard, you need to have an EQ that you can adjust that is between the receiver and the amp. Now, if you try to manually change the EQ in your receiver, it defeats Odyssey. And then
although you could use the Odyssey Editor app. Now that only allows you to adjust the target curve. So you're still at the mercy of what the Odyssey microphone measures and then what Odyssey automatically implements. But you can at least change what it's aiming for. So for example, let's say you have your room, it's completed, you've run Odyssey. Then you get a UMic 1 and start experimenting with Room EQ Wizard, and you find out that no matter where you measure in your room, you're seeing, even though you've already run Odyssey, some particularly large hump in one or two places or something like that. Now, you could, and this would be a bit of trial and error, but not completely blind shooting trial and error, but you could go into the Odyssey Editor app, and where Room EQ Wizard is showing a hump response, you could change the target curve to have a lowered response there. You'd manually draw in a dip in your response right there, and then run Odyssey again, and then measure with Room EQ Wizard after that again and see if Odyssey responded. See if it took that target curve information and lowered that.
This is dangerous.
It is dangerous. I don't really like this. I'm just describing
what you should do.
You could do.
You should get your second subwoofer. Yes. You should set it up properly. You should run Odyssey. You should live in your theater and say, am I noticing any problems? And if you're not noticing any problems, then you are done.
I'm in favor of running the sweeps. Of you going around
he's only going to be running it probably from one location, right? So he'd either have to take multiple measurements and have them all summed together and all that other stuff with Room EQ Wizard, which most people won't do. Most people, especially when they're new with this, they're going to take that one measurement and go, oh my God, look at this hump, and
right.
And then there you are. So let's say you ignore all this and you start, you get your Room EQ Wizard, you start measuring stuff, and you do all the things, and then you find a hump that's at 60 hertz or something.
Sure.
You can change the Odyssey curve, like Rob said.
Mm-hmm. You also, since you're getting SVS subwoofers, as long as it's the Pro models, then they have 3 bands of parametric EQ built into those. So now you run into a bit of an issue because you'd have to adjust the subwoofers EQ, the EQ that's built into the subwoofers. You'd have to adjust those after having run Odyssey.
Right.
Because if you adjust the EQ in the subwoofers based on what you see in Room EQ Wizard, but then rerun Odyssey, well, Odyssey's going to try to counteract what you just did manually. So you have to do it after the fact. So you have to run Odyssey first, then measure with Room EQ Wizard, then adjust the manual EQ that's built into the subwoofers, measure with Room EQ Wizard again to see if that's given you the response that you're looking for.
I mean, even then, your speakers are still playing something down at 60 hertz.
Sure.
They're not playing a lot, but they're playing something. And if that hump is anywhere north of that, then suddenly you're not just looking at adjusting the Odyssey. I mean, you could try the Odyssey curve thing. That's always on the table. But the minute that you get away from doing the Odyssey curve thing, you're suddenly going to have to buy, a mini DSP and a separate amplifier and start doing all of that. It's a rabbit hole that can easily get out of control here.
Yeah, and I mean, people
the reality is you have a rectangular room,
right?
And if you just buy the 2 subs and place them properly, you're not going to have any of these problems, more than likely.
Yeah, you've given yourself the best shot of having pretty good response just based on proper placement. I mean, it might be as simple as flipping the polarity. Sometimes you'll discover that, I'm playing it. I'm like, hey, I'm just noticing a dip. Play a sweep. Listen to sweeps. That doesn't take a super long time, and it's easy to move yourself from seat to seat, and just play a bass sweep on repeat and see if you notice some big dip somewhere. If you do, just try flicking the polarity, which you can do right from the SVS app. Flick the polarity on the sub at the back of your room, and very often that'll like get rid of that one dip, and that's all you needed to do, without worrying that, yes, if you measured it with your EQ Wizard, you might not get a perfectly flat line. That is entirely possible. But what matters is, do you hear it? Do you notice? Because it has to be pretty egregious for your ears to actually notice it. But if you do have something egregious, then you can make that adjustment if you've listened to a bass sweep on repeat. People are always gung-ho about measurements at first because it's new and exciting. I just got the microphone. I started, it's fun. I'm learning this stuff. And then, very quickly, most people start finding it very tedious. They start cutting down on the number of measurements they're taking and the number of positions in which they're measuring. And you can cause more harm than good if you aren't thorough. Because if you're just measuring in one location because it's convenient and doesn't take as much time, you can start running into issues. So it's a bit of all or nothing. Are you really willing to commit to the tedium of taking as many measurements as you're going to take? And it is hundreds, if not thousands, that you're going to end up taking, because it's before and after, it's every seat, it's over and over and over again. It's a ridiculously repetitive, tedious process. If you're like, that is exactly what I want,
that is my jam,
then I am perfectly okay. Mike isn't that expensive.
You had me at
Wizard
Tedium.
is free. But if you just want good response in your theater, I'd kind of steer you away from it. That's my response to that question.
Right. Like I said, I think that doing this is something that people think is going to be worth it. That the time and effort they put into this is going to end up paying off, and they're gonna say, okay, I spent hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
They don't think it's going to be hundreds of hours, but I spent hundreds of hours, and now my theater sounds so good that people walk in and are like blown away. You're gonna start this process and go, wow, this theater sounds pretty good. I wonder how much better it's going to sound. And get to the end, you go, I don't know that I notice a difference that much.
You'll convince yourself that you do, and there's the satisfaction of seeing the graphs. That is something. But if you think that anybody in this world besides you and the handful of people who listen to this podcast are going to appreciate what you did,
we have more than a handful. Come on,
nobody who comes into your theater, unless you invite somebody from a forum or a podcast, none of your friends, none of your family is going to care one iota that you did any of
that you did all this, right?
They're absolutely not going to notice, and they're
you don't think that's true? Go in there and watch something with your family and turn off the one subwoofer you have. Just turn it off.
Yeah.
Don't even tell them. Just turn it off.
Oh heck, turn off everything except two speakers.
Yeah. See if they notice anything. Yeah. See if they do. So he says, since he only has a single subwoofer for the time being, would the UMic 1 and Room EQ Wizard be a benefit over Odyssey, or should he just wait until he eventually gets a second sub before worrying too much about that? The second one.
Tom answered that without you even asking the question, and I'm in full agreement. He's coming up against some budget constraints and stuff like that too. The second sub is way more important. More important. Get that.
Save that $100 that you're going to spend on that UMic 1. Yeah. Just save that towards your sub.
Do the listening test. Do the bass sweeps on repeat. That can actually be some fun. That's a morning. That's not
subwoofer crawl or whatever. Yeah.
Have some fun with that because it's fun. I love listening to sweeps. It's fun.
So he knows his Klipsch speakers don't have a perfectly flat response. So what should be his target curve? What should he be aiming for? Flat.
Although, in the case of these, I'd be because this is a simple settings switch that doesn't even require you rerunning Odyssey. Try setting it to the Odyssey flat target curve. Try setting it to the Odyssey reference target curve, because the reference target curve includes a little high frequency roll off. With Klipsch speakers, reference speakers in an enclosed room like this, you very well might prefer the slight bit of roll off in the reference curve. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Now that's just a settings change in your AV receiver, flicking back and forth between those two. So 100% give that a try, because that's barely any time. So yeah.
So his laptop is a bit old at this point, but it has an HDMI out. Is that all he would need for using his Room EQ Wizard with this system, or would he need some sort of fancy sound card? Well, I mean, I don't know, but I don't want you to buy it. I don't want you to get the U mic. I don't want you to do any of it. So
But if and
I
when
would
you
say
do,
no.
at
You need a new computer too.
no, at
You
the,
need a brand new computer with the most expensive graphics card available that all the Bitcoin miners are stealing are snapping up. And yeah.
No, that's a facetious answer. On it, what you have is fine. You'll want to get the ASIO for all, ASIO digit for all drivers, because that lets you put out individual test tones to a 7.1 system. Now, you're not going to be able to output individual test tones to your 4 overhead Atmos speakers. Doesn't have that capability. I don't know how you'll survive, but you can put out individual test tones through HDMI, any HDMI input, including the one that you already have, as long as you get those ASIO for all drivers, which they link right to on the Room EQ Wizard page.
Okay. Let's see here. Is it worth paying extra for a UMic 1 from Cross Spectrum Labs? He's in Canada, so there's an additional shipping and border fees to consider. I don't want you to buy it.
Right
but
now.
Yes. Yes. But yes, there is a benefit, and I think it's worth it. Even with the extra shipping, you get a calibrated mic, which is, I mean, if you're going to go through all this hassle, why wouldn't you get the calibrated mic? I can't imagine a situation where I would say, I'll just take the off-the-shelf model when I could take the off-shelf model plus $20 or $10. I think it's like only $10.
It's about $20. About
$20
yeah.
to get the calibration file so that my mic is just as accurate as a professionally calibrated mic. And since it has to be recertified every year, technically, I mean, no one ever does that, but you could send it back to him, he will do it again. But it's just supposed to recertify it every year and change the calibration. You're never going to do it past the first year anyways. I mean, so it's good for life.
Yeah, no,
I would.
The main thing is that when you get it directly from Mini DSP, they do have a calibration file that comes with it. It actually is an individual calibration file to that mic. It was very quickly done, but it is only the direct response. It's the I'm pointing the microphone at the source of the sound response. Now, they give you a second calibration file, which is the 90-degree response calibration file. That's what you want, because when you do a room measurement, you point the microphone straight up at the ceiling, and then you're getting the 90-degree response from all the speakers that are positioned around you, at least on the floor layer. But the one that Mini DSP provides you is a mathematically derived 90-degree calibration file. So they're taking the on-axis microphone pointing straight at the sound source file and then mathematically calculating what they expect the 90-degree response to be based on how the microphone typically responds. Whereas when you get it from Cross Spectrum Labs, they measure the 90-degree response and individually calibrate that microphone. It is not just mathematically derived. So for the $20 that Herb charges, it's completely worthwhile.
So moving on from the measurement stuff, he's about 11 feet from his front speakers, and his front left and right towers are fairly close to the side walls. What's the best way to tow in his speakers? Well, we talked about clips in particular have their own, idiosyncrasies, but in general, the way I do it is straight out, listen, straight at you, listen. And what are the differences between those two? What you're listening for is left and right pans. So if you don't have any music, find some that has left and right pans. How solid is the center image when you're just doing the stereo sound? The vocals sound like they're coming from directly in front of you when they're supposed to be. And how wide is that sound stage? You want the pan to go all the way across, but does it start outside the room and end outside the room, or is it confined within between the two speakers? So if directly at you, you're like, ow, my ears hurt, which could be with these clip speakers. And the image is solid, but the pans are very, very shallow. And then straightforward, you're like, the center image isn't that great, but the pans are like fantastic now. Well, then you slowly turn them in a little bit until you get the best of all worlds. Is sort of the easiest way to do this.
And don't be afraid to try going beyond having them towed in so they're pointed straight at you. You can actually go even farther so that if there were a straight line coming out of the tweeters that they actually intersect in front of you somewhere, so like a really steep toe in is what I'm talking about. You can give that a try, because as long as we're experimenting, doesn't hurt, because sometimes, interestingly enough, that actually gives you the wider sweet spot and the better imaging when you have them heavily towed in. So you can give it a try. My other method of approaching figuring out toe into speakers is to take yourself, get up very close to the speaker, just play the pink noise that comes out of your AV receiver when you're doing the channel level trim adjustment, just that pink noise that plays out of one speaker at a time. Get yourself very close, 1 foot, your face 1 foot in front of the tweeter. Start with yourself directly in front of it, bang on axis, listen to that pink noise, move ever so slightly off axis, because a lot of speakers, and definitely in the case of Klipsch, as soon as you move even a tiny bit off axis, the sound, the tone of that pink noise changes. But then from that point on, as you move to the left and right, you'll hear a window, a cone shape where the sound is pretty uniform within that wedge that you've created of angles. And then in the case of Klipsch, typically you'll find that once you go beyond a certain point, there's a pretty drastic change in timbre as you move outside of that cone. So my goal is to have all the seats I care about within those cones where the sound is quite even. So you can even put like a little piece of, non-marking tape or a Post-it note or something like that to mark those angles on the top. And then you stand behind your speaker and you kind of aim the speakers so that all the seats you care about are within that wedge. And that works out pretty well.
So any other suggestions for him based on his photos and what he's described? So we've already said absorption on your back wall, buy a second subwoofer, do not paint the ceiling tiles, and then also fill the above the ceiling tiles with insulation, cheap insulation. I would also recommend whatever corners you do not currently have a subwoofer in, or you don't have a subwoofer in, putting some corner trapping would not be a bad idea. The super chunk traps. And I think you're done. Honestly, I don't see a whole lot else to do in here. What do you got, Rob? Got anything else?
No, I'm in agreement with that. I think you're well on your way. I think that is all that you need to do for the time being. Could there be tweaks to do beyond that? Sure, but we definitely want you to get that second subwoofer before anything else, and finish up that ceiling.
Number one.
Yeah.
Yes. The ceiling and the absorption above the ceiling, I think I would probably do first. Then it's the second sub.
Yeah.
The back panels and the corner traps. Kind of in that order would be fine. If you did the back panels before you got the second sub, I think I'd be okay with that too. David is asking some questions on behalf of his friend, Aaron. Sure. There we go. Aaron just bought a house. Right. Another house question. The previous owner already had a home theater in the basement, but the only thing left behind is the 106-inch roll-down screen. David doesn't know the brand, but it appears to just be a basic white. The theater area is 16 feet front to back and 17.5 feet wide, but it's open on the left of the rest of the basement, so it's not an enclosed space. The ceiling is 7 feet 7 inches. The front wall has a 45-degree angles in the front corners on either side of where the screen comes down. The 45-degree section creates alcoves. There are bottom sections of the alcoves that have a glass doors on the front of them. The upper sections of the alcoves are larger and open. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
There's images down below. I do want to warn that the pictures that look like the room, those are actually renders. They're quite impressive, realistic looking renders, but they are renders, and that's why we're not seeing a drop down screen in those images. If you're seeing them on YouTube, it's marked out what the size of the screen would look like. But yeah, these are just renders of the room, not real photos.
So there's a small overhead shelf alcove on the back wall that houses the projector. There's a conduit with a pull string that goes from the front wall, the 45-degree alcove part, yes. Surround speaker wires that come out of the back corners, and a subwoofer connection in the middle of the back wall. There's one window on the right wall. Aaron would be fine with covering that to block out the light. Aaron was thinking he'd have a single row of theater recliners basically on the back wall, of course. David always suggested moving the seats forward. We'll see how that goes. So, okay. Oh, I see. The alcoves are like in the corners. I see.
The front corners, yeah.
Like if you were in church, it's where you put your statues of whatever gods
sure.
you serve. Okay. So yeah, these are very
big opening on the left-hand side, open to the rest of the basement.
Yeah, I see it. Okay. What should Aaron get as far as the projector and the screen goes? He's intrigued by the ultra short throw options, which he totally doesn't need in this application, but whatever. But David isn't sure if that's the right choice. He would need a new screen, right? Whereas he could use the 106-inch screen that's already there if he gets a new regular projector, correct? His budget's around $4,500, but we suggest, what do we think of the ultra short throw option? I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a humongous waste of money is what I think it is. I think it's sexy to talk about, but why? You have a setup for a projector that is already built in for you. All you have to do is put the projector on the little shelf and buy a new screen for the front of the room. Bob's your uncle.
He doesn't even have to buy a new screen for the front of the room as long as 106 inches is okay.
Yeah. So how far is this? 14 feet 4 inches.
Well, that's if he's sitting on the back wall. It'd be that far. So
well, I mean, that was eyes to screen. So what's the actual width? It's 15. Oh, it's just under 16 feet.
Yeah, just about 16 feet front to back. So, David's trying to convince Aaron to just move the seats a bit forward off the back wall.
Yes.
I would be in favor of that. Yeah, I mean, like, for a 106-inch screen, 10-foot viewing distance would be real nice. That leaves you a very comfortable 6 feet behind you. So I would be very okay with that idea. But yeah, I mean, I'm also in agreement. I'm in favor of using the regular projector. You would absolutely want the ultra short throw ambient light rejecting style of screens that requires replacing the screen. It also, brings up the issue of, okay, where does the center speaker go? Because it would have to go on a stand that is basically right in front of the projector. It's not like there's zero depth to the ultra short throw projectors. They are going to stick out from the wall about 2 feet. Then the center speaker has to go in front of that. And this doesn't particularly look like a room that's like, kind of looks like things are meant to go against the walls in here. I'm picturing that's what he has in mind. So regular projector gets my vote. As to exactly which one, of course, in this price range, because we're not quite up into the JVC price ranges with this.
Yeah, so Epson 5040, if you can
Epson 5050 UB. Epson 5050 UB is under $3,000. That's absolutely. However, I have no idea how accurate the rendering of the projector alcove in the back of the room is.
Right.
I don't know if that is about the size.
You would have to measure that.
Yeah, because the 5050 UB is not a small projector. It's got a good amount of depth to it, a good amount of weight to it, so you'd have to be careful. Now, if you're like, look, I don't want to mess around with that alcove, but that is where I want to put the projector, and it needs to be physically smaller than the 5050 UB, but still be worthwhile and have good performance and fit this price range, JVC's DLP projector, not their liquid crystal on silicone that's $6,000 or $5,500 and up, but their DLP one that actually uses a laser light engine. So that is their NZ3, their NZ3. That is $3,700 retail. You can find them for a little bit less than that typically. But that is a lighter, physically smaller, but still really good performer that pretty much goes toe-to-toe with the Epson 5050 UB, and that might work a bit better. I didn't look up to make sure that the throw distance is exactly correct for the 106-inch screen size on the JVC. I know the Epson 5050 will work as far as that goes. Double check Projector Central with their projector throw calculator. Double check on that JVC NZ3 that the throw distance is going to work if you're using that alcove.
Okay. I can get behind those. Aaron is thinking he'd stick with the 5.1 or 5.2 configuration. David suggested SVS for the subs, and Aaron also looked at their speakers. Something in the Prime series would fit the sort of price range he's considering. Should he go with those, or given the room what we suggest? There are those front wall alcoves to consider, but Aaron would be willing to use towers instead of putting bookshelf speakers in the alcoves. What we think would be best. You don't need towers or sitting 10 feet away from these things. I mean, even if you sit on the back wall.
Even if you sat 14 feet away, you don't really need it. Yeah.
You don't need towers. Obviously you're going to want to use the alcoves because of course you are. Now, the thing is I would highly resist putting a subwoofer in one of those alcoves in the lower parts.
Please don't.
Which I'm sure somebody's going to think is a good idea. Just nip that one in the bud.
I mean, you could, since the wire is already in the middle of the back wall, you could do the middle of the front wall. Now, that isn't necessarily going to work because you have an open left side. So,
well, that's the thing. I think that this is, I think you're going to end up wanting to get a single sub that is big. And then try to pressurize the space and see where you end up. I mean, he's obviously going to want to put it in that, he's either going to want to put it next to his gear so he can run a cable to it, or he's going to want to put it in that back corner.
Yeah.
In-wall
cable's already been run.
It's already there. So, yeah, he's going to want to put it in one of those places. So I would just put it there and hope that you end up with something good. I got no problems with putting the speakers in the alcoves. I mean, you're going to want to have them not pushed back in there, and then you also want to, fill the alcove, not mix it fill, but at least line it with some insulation, DIY panels or whatever.
Like I was thinking NHT might be a really good choice here. because the sealed design. I mean, we like their sound quality. The price is very reasonable. So I was thinking NHT might be a nice choice here, because if you're going to use those alcoves, and I see no reason why not, because they're at a reasonable height. They're already there.
It seems to be based on this render. I mean, we don't know.
Keeps the look very nice and clean and all that. Plus the wires have already been run and all that type of stuff. So I'm kind of a fan of that. And yeah, I would strongly consider NHT here.
Okay, I can get behind that. You could also, my go-to is always just to go to accessories for less and see what they have on sale there too. They might have some kefs or something like that you might be interested in. Okay. Number 3. Given the room is open to the rest of the basement, Aaron isn't interested in pressurizing his entire house. It's not the entire house, it's just the basement. As mentioned, there's already a subwoofer connection in the middle of the back wall for the theater area. So which SVS subwoofer model would we suggest, or maybe some other brand and model? Well, as big as he can afford, I guess. But I mean, if he doesn't want to see it, it's going to be a box. If he doesn't mind maybe seeing it a little bit, get a cylinder.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the cylinder, especially if you do go for that rear wall placement. And let's imagine that he does want the seats closer to the back wall than we or David would have it. Having the cylinder and laying the cylinder on its side, so that it is nicely in that rear corner and you don't even really notice it, and it's behind the seats, and you would have enough space to do that without the seats having to be way far away from the back wall. So yeah, I mean, given that this is an open room, I would opt for a PC 4000 if he can afford it. I think a PC 4000 would be a fantastic choice for here. But if the PC 2000 Pro is much more to the budget, would make more sense, then you might end up turning it pretty close to maximum. But that's okay. It won't bottom out. It won't hurt itself. And since it's hopefully right behind his seats, it's on that back wall, you're still going to get some good, tactile response just from the physically having it that close. So I think a cylinder really makes a ton of sense, and lay it on its side. Don't be afraid to lay it on its side.
It would give you the most options as far as if he wants to tuck it behind a couch,
or in a rear corner, right? If he wants to put it in a rear corner where it's not really visual, like takes up very little floor space, sinks nicely into the corner, fabric wrap, all that. Yeah.
I get behind that. So which AV receiver should Aaron get? He's interested in the Denon X750H, but it seems like we're always recommending the X series models. What's the main difference, and which model should Aaron go for? Any receiver on the market these days, I think almost any, is not going to have a problem with a 5-point anything. They all have 7.
Oh, that's not the issue. Yeah. I mean, the reason we always go the X series instead of the S series is the X series gets at a minimum Mult-EQ XT.
Right.
Whereas the S series is vanilla Mult-EQ, which I'm not the biggest fan of original Mult-EQ. Like, that's one of the ones where you could actually do a little bit more harm than good in the mid-range and high frequencies if you run it full range. That's sort of the one, this whole thing that people talk about curtaining off the response in the editor app and only allowing it to EQ the bass. It's like, yeah, regular Mult-EQ is where that kind of makes sense to me. As soon as you get to XT, or especially XT32, then I'm willing to run that thing full range because it does a perfectly reasonable job. So yeah, it's Mult-EQ XT is the reason I'm willing to step up.
Basically, that's, for me, that's where it comes down to when I'm buying a receiver. And I've said this many, many times. You don't buy a receiver based on the number of speakers you own. Okay, that's not why you buy this, because in order to get whatever features you care about, and that's what you really have to do when you buy a receiver. You have to figure out, what am I going to use this receiver for? What am I going to connect to it, and am I going to use this receiver? And then that's the receiver you buy. Mm-hmm. So with me, I have to make sure I have enough HDMI inputs, which is never a problem anymore, but it used to be. And I also have to worry about, the different HDMI options that are out there right now, because that's a future-proofing thing. But more importantly, I'm worried about room correction. I want to get the best room correction because I want to have the best bass response I can in my room. Yes, I place my subs properly. Yes, I do all the stuff I'm supposed to do. But if you really want to have the best bass response, you have to get the best room correction that you can buy, you can afford. In my case, that's XT32 with sub EQ HT or whatever it's called. I can't remember anymore. So that's the way that you shop for a receiver. You don't shop for a receiver based on the number of speakers that you're going to be powering. You shop for all the other stuff. Like, how does he listen to music? Does he stream? Is he going to be connecting multiple boxes? Is it going to have multiple game systems down here? Is it going to be Ultra HD, an Ultra HD Blu-ray player? Do you want to have the Xbox Series X or the PS5? These are questions that have to be answered before you start shopping for a receiver. You don't shop for the receiver and say, I've got 5 speakers. I need 5 speakers. This powers 5 speakers. I'm done. Then you're going to find out that you have other problems.
We do know either way it's going to be projector, so we're not really worried about HDMI 2.1. That said, we talked about last week how I have no idea if he would ever want to go down the tactile transducer route, but if he does, then having the ability to continue playing surround sound in the main zone while creating a 2-channel down mix for zone 2 and connecting your tactile transducers to the zone 2 output, that is a benefit, in which case you'd want to look at the Denon models that end in a 700. So that'd be like the, let's see here, because I don't think the X1700 even has zone 2 pre-outs. I think its zone 2 is self-powered only. So that gets you up to like the X2700H if you want to do that. So yeah, there you go. But otherwise, I'd probably point you to Accessories for Less and an X2600H, because if all you're worried about is this one room and you're not going to need any Zone 2 stuff, then an X2600H for $600 from Accessories for Less would be a great choice.
Bertrand in Quebec. Stepping away from Bertrand's new home theater for a moment, he'll be getting a new Mac Mini in the living room. He's got an old 2011 iMac in there at the moment and is in need of an upgrade. The living room is very bright. The computer doesn't actually get used that much and isn't for gaming or movies, but he does some photo editing on it. So a very bright image and accurate colors are the priority. Budget is around $450 Canadian, and I'm sorry, $500 Canadian. Why did I say $450? It doesn't even look like $450. And he'd like to keep the size around 24, 25 inches. Okay, well, I mean, in between 24 and 25 inches, please. Do we have any suggestions? I don't.
No. Okay.
I mean, what do you think I was going to say, Rob?
When it comes to monitor that is bright and color accurate, I'm like, Artings. Artings is the perfect place to look, because all they care about is bright, and they do care about color accuracy, but it seems like mostly what they care about is bright. And actually, they have recommendations specifically for the Mac Mini. So it might be a little bit surprising, but I think the one that's going to suit your preferences the most is a monitor from Gigabyte. Okay. We know that name from motherboards, but we don't typically hear about them for displays. But Gigabyte has a model called the it's the M27Q, and yes, the 27 does mean 27 inches. They just don't make like really bright color accurates that are smaller than 27 inches in most cases. Right. Almost all of them are that 27-inch size. Now, it's got virtually no bezels, so I think he'll be okay. Like, he was like, his iMac is already the 27-inch size, and he wouldn't mind if it were a little bit smaller. But I'm like, yeah, this thing has no bezels. It's, not an all-in-one computer. So given all that you wanted. Now, the reason why I think that Gigabyte might be the one that you want is because the other ones that are in this price range, like mostly it would be the Asus ProArt monitors would be the ones that would be in this price range and have accurate colors. But the Asus ProArt ones in this price range aren't as bright. They're like 250, 300 nits. The Gigabyte one gets all the way up to 500 nits. And ratings pointed out how they were really impressed how out of the box its color accuracy is already really, really good. So it fits the price range. It's like $480 something on Amazon Canada. So yeah, M27Q from Gigabyte, I think, checks all the boxes.
All right. Ari. A while back, Ari asked us if he should upgrade his ELAC Unify speakers. We said, probably not. But we did mention he could benefit from a subwoofer upgrade. The current room is only 12 feet wide, 16 feet long, and 6 foot 8 inches high, and it's enclosed. But he's building a dedicated home theater, and all the gear will get moved into that when it's done. So which sub or subs would we recommend to him? He didn't tell us how big the new room's going to be.
He did not tell us how big the new room is going to be. He did say dedicated. I hope that means enclosed. And
here's a bunch of information that does not help you at all.
Right.
And let me ask you a question that I will not give you the information that you will need in order to answer this question.
But that's that's okay.
That's the way.
Not
that's
everybody.
Okay. We'll
not
do our
everybody
best.
knows.
Here we go. Putting on my mind reading.
Yes.
My mind reading cap.
Now I'm thinking. I mean, the chances that this room that he's building is going to be enormous in this house. I don't know.
I assume it must be bigger. That's the only thing I can assume. It's got to be bigger, right?
I
12
don't
by
know.
16 by... it's got to be bigger. Okay. I mean, what else would it be?
But I'm assuming not mammoth. That is the assumption I'm making, Ari. I have
Buy
no
a
idea.
cylinder sub from SVS. Okay,
I mean,
I'm
that's
done.
super safe. If you got
That's
if you got PC 2000 Pros, the chances of them not working in a given room is very, very slim. I mean, you'd have to have a really, really big room, or a room that isn't enclosed at all. PC 2000 Pros are super safe choice in just about anywhere. Now, if you're just like, I hate the cylinder form factor, I mean, like, SB 2000 Pros are a very middle-of-the-road safe bet for almost any room. It's why they're SVS's most popular subwoofers by quite a margin. So I'm pretty comfortable recommending something in the 2000 Pro range. I mean, the chances that isn't going to have enough output for whatever room you're putting them in is pretty slim in a normal house. That's my best shot.
Yeah. Okay. That's the strangest question I think we've ever gotten. So he's got a first gen Apple TV 4K antenna and receiver and the Hisense Roku TV. He hated the Apple TV remote, so he got a Harmony. We got a good, because they're not going to make them anymore.
Yeah.
At some point after a firmware update for his TV, it started showing the volume change on his TV, which he hated. He wasn't using the built-in Roku apps anyway, so he changed inputs from the ARC input to the non-ARC port, and that seemed to get rid of the annoying on-screen volume indicator. Sounds like, well, I mean, whatever. Using his Harmony remote allowed him to avoid all the HDMI-CC stuff, but the thing was, even though he didn't like the Apple TV remote, sometimes it was much nicer to use its touchpad rather than having to press arrow keys over and over. But if he used the Apple TV remote, he had to rely on HDMI-CC to control the volume if he didn't want to have to pick up different remotes. So now that Apple TV 4K and the new Siri remote have been announced, will that let him use just that remote? It's got a power button and volume buttons to control a TV, but will it work with his den and receiver? Will he be able to power everything on, control the volume, and not be annoyed by the on-screen volume indicator, and also have touchpad controls? That would be ideal. I don't know. This sounds very complicated. It also sounds like there's no way that you can get away from having the stuff on the screen, because you'll have to turn on HDMI-CC to make everything work with that Apple remote.
That is
and therefore
exactly
you're gonna start having things that you don't like happen.
Yeah, the new Siri remote for the second generation Apple TV 4K, it's not like it's an infrared remote. That's not what it's doing. It is sending commands through CEC. It absolutely is 100% using HDMI CEC to control primarily the television, was what they had in mind. Now, it will, I mean, it should, by all accounts, work with an AV receiver and television setup. CEC was designed to be able to do that. Is there a possibility of running into some unforeseen glitches with CEC? Of course there is. There's always that chance. But if all you want to do is you press the power button on your Apple TV 4K, that turns on the AV receiver and the television, sets those to the correct inputs for the Apple TV 4K as the source that is plugged into the AV receiver, and then the AV receiver is plugged into the TV, and then controls the volume on the AV receiver. HDMI CEC is set up to do that. It should be able to do that much. Will you see the volume changing on your television? Yes, you will. Once you have HDMI CEC turned on, and that is how the control is being handled through that signal change, that's what's going to happen. It was HDMI CEC showing you the volume thing on there, not the ARC port. It was once you were able to turn HDMI CEC off because you had your Harmony remote, that's what got rid of that volume indicator, because the volume indicator is coming from your den, and it's not coming from the TV.
It's not coming from the TV.
So that is CEC.
I mean, if it's coming from the TV, you got a different problem.
Right.
That's a completely different problem. You've got multiple.
Yeah, turning the volume on your TV up and down, which you shouldn't be doing. So, I don't think there's a perfect solution for you here. Honestly, I would continue using the Harmony remote in a heartbeat. That's what I would do. But that's the situation there.
Okay. In the current room, the wiring is very old and a bit suspect. Every so often, if the microwave is turned on and a switch gets flipped somewhere in the house, his TV will freak out. It always comes back after a moment or two, but is he killing his gear in the meantime? He was sort of just waiting it out because he's building that home theater room, but with a surge protector help protect his gear for now. You have a grounding issue, sir. Is what you have, and you need to call an electrician and get that sorted out, because that's what that poor wiring in the house, stuff like that, where you turn on the vacuum cleaner and your TV freaks out. That's because your house isn't grounded properly. That's what's going on there. So I would definitely call an electrician, because there's no guarantee when you move your room that that your stuff is going to be suddenly fixed. It sounds like you got to have somebody look at this.
Yeah, that is absolutely not something I'm going to say a surge protector will, first of all, even help, or second, even if it did, it would be the thinnest of Band-Aids for this issue, and that is not the way that you want to come at this. If it, on the off chance that it has nothing to do with the power in your house and it's just a signal, like it's an HDMI cable or something that's picking up microwave interference, then I mean that's just a shielding problem for whatever that is. But I don't think that's what you mean, because this like exactly what Tom said, sounds like it's a grounding issue. Now, it's very common. It's not like you did anything wrong or anything like that. It's super, super common, but you want to get that properly addressed, and absolutely a surge protector is not the fix.
No. Joe, so we've often mentioned keeping the screen size to about 120 inches since that allows the most popular home theater projector models to display a nice bright image, but he's got a project coming up and it has specified a 196-inch screen width.
Yeah.
Okay, so width. That would be 225 inches diagonal if it were 16 by 9. They've actually specified a 2.4 to 1 aspect ratio, but there still needs to be enough light from the projector to handle that screen size. He was looking at the BenQ LK990 laser projector that goes for just under 10 grand. It's spec'd at 6,000 lumens. That would be great if it just shot humans out of it. What are our thoughts? Do we have any suggestions? No, Rob. What's gonna put up a 225-inch diagonal screen? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, I gotta say, ideally, a projector outputting 15,000 lumens. Ideally, that's what you'd be going for. Now, 7,500 lumens mathematically is about the minimum you're aiming for, because that gets you to your like movie theater foot Lambert levels. If you want
like 500 or 50 nits,
50 nits, yeah, 50 nits. 15 foot Lamberts. If you want to get up to today's modern standards of aiming for 100 nits, then that's where you need 15,000 lumens for a screen of this size. Now, of course, there are large venue projectors. Some of them are not like when $10,000 is around the price range that you're looking for. They are available in that sort of price range.
Don't they usually need like their own cooling systems and a bunch of other stuff?
They
like
can. Most of them are laser driven, but normally that's the even brighter ones. That's like full movie theater size that need their own separate cooling systems. You can do this for around this budget. However, I think one of the main reasons he was probably looking at the BenQ LK990 is, I don't know if it's the only game in town, but it's pretty close to the only game in town for genuine 4K resolution. Although it is the pixel shifting. It's the half 4K resolution that's being shifted twice per frame in the case of the LK990, but your eye still sees a full 4K. And I think that might have been why he was looking at it, because for this price, 6,000 lumens, which is up there, but it's not actually as much as you genuinely need for the size of screen that's been specified. Now, if that screen is in a really dark room and has really high gain, then the BenQ you could get away with it, but just mathematically, I think you're looking for higher lumen output. So when you go to the large venue projectors that are in this price range, they are almost all WUXGA, which is the I forget what the horizontal resolution, but it's the 1200 vertical resolution. It's not 4K resolution. WUXGA is the resolution that almost all of the projectors in this price and lumen output range are. I would probably point you to a Barco. I gotta be honest. Once you get up into these, I'd probably just go for a Barco. I know Epson has a bunch of their laser large venue projectors, but once you're up here, I'd probably just go for a Barco. So have a look at that. I'm not sure what your client or if this is for your own project, but whatever's coming up there, I'd encourage you to take a look at Barco's lineup. I think that's where you need to go. They basically start at 10,000 lumens and up.
Okay. Gurinder. In Gurinder's family room, the TV is not the focal point, and you can see that if you're watching YouTube, the image, there's the TV above the fireplace, and the couch is not facing it.
Well, it's a wraparound couch, so
okay. Well, I guess that makes a little bit more sense, but that's a little silly. It's mostly on for sports or some games that his son plays in there sometimes, and it's above their fireplace, which he knows we never recommend, but that's where the TV goes in this room. That's fine. I don't care where you put your TV. Current TV is 1080p Sony. It's 55 inches. He's noticed that this LG CX OLEDs are on clearance prices now that the C1 models have arrived, so he's very tempted. Seeing the space above his fireplace that he's dealing with. Would a 65-inch be too big? Should he stick with the 55-inch size? Well, I mean, you can just measure it, right?
There's room there, man. There's absolutely, you can fit a
it.
65-inch in there. It's no problem.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can just measure it. You could go on the website and measure it. There's plenty of light in this room. He hasn't bought into the hype about needing crazy nit levels. But just overall, does an OLED make sense in this room?
It sure does.
Sure.
It makes sense in any room unless you're really far away.
So what do we think about those over-the-fireplace TV wall mounts that lets you pull the TV forward and down when you're watching? I don't see any reason to have that in this room. I'll be honest with you. They're fine, and I've seen them, and they work great.
You can usually see the mount behind it when you pull it down.
Oh yeah. You're going to be able to. A lot of times when you pull it forward and down, and then above your TV, your sight line, depending on how far down you pull it, you'll be able to see the mount on the wall back there.
And I'm not a huge fan of that. I find that a little bit visually distracting, to be honest.
But I don't really see what the point is.
I mean, in this room, I don't think you need it.
This is not a room that. I mean, your son isn't going to care. Right. He's just playing video games. He's probably leaning over the back of that couch with the controller in his hand. Doing, you know what I mean? He's not going to care. So. If it's just for sports or whatever, I mean, I just don't see the point. You're going to buy a bigger screen, it'll be bigger. Moving it forward to make it seem actually a little bit bigger as well.
You will see the difference going to an OLED. I don't care about that. My room is bright. What do you want? What, 600 nits isn't enough? People are insane on that thing. You can see the difference. Standard dynamic range content coming from cable on an OLED, you absolutely see the difference coming from an LCD. It's totally worth it.
Okay. Andrew. When Andrew gets a second subwoofer, almost certainly ask PB1000 Pro that he'll pair with his current PB1000. He fully intends to follow Rob's 12-step guide. Would it be worth buying a mini DSP? What will be the differences in terms of what he can tweak and adjust with the mini DSP versus in his system versus no mini DSP? Well, you still have the mic. You have to do the microphone thing too. So that's
pretty sure he got that already. He was on board with
so
that.
What do we know about this guy's his room? Remind me.
So this is our model spaceship guy. So he's got his LS50s in there now, KEF LS50s. He was all Paradigm before, but he's got KEF LS50s going on in there. It's mostly like a living room setup, so it's not a completely rectangle enclosed dedicated room. But he's all decorated out with Star Wars equipment and all that.
Paraphernalia. I remember.
Yeah.
So. The mini DSP, what will you be able to do versus not being able to do in here? Well, first of all, you can do the multiple measurements. You can have the Room EQ Wizard, whatever that program is, come up with a curve, a target curve, or whatever.
Yeah,
and
you can do that directly, or you can use the multi-sub optimizer in conjunction with Room EQ Wizard as well. Yeah.
Which is great. You'll only be able to adjust the subs that way. You won't be able to do anything else unless you have unless you buy one that can basically connect to all your speakers, and then you buy separate amps for all your speakers. So will it be worth it? There's no way for us to know for sure.
I mean, it's real iffy because the main thing that you'd be able to do that you won't be able to do with one PB1000 Pro and one PB1000, the non-Pro, is the PB1000 that you already own, it doesn't have any bands of EQ built in. The PB1000 Pro does. It has 3 bands of parametric EQ built in. So you won't be able to have individual EQ applied to each sub with what you have now. You can apply EQ to the PB1000 Pro once you get it, but you can't apply EQ just to your existing PB1000. With the mini DSP, you'd be able to do that. But the big question is, do you need to? Will you need to? And that's probably not, because if the idea is you're using the second subwoofer to compensate for any shortcomings of where the response you're getting from where the first subwoofer is placed. So what I would do is take your PB1000, and if you're putting it somewhere in the front of your room and your choices are limited of where it can go, I would take the PB1000 and I'd put it at the front of your room in the place where it works. You get the response from that, and then you use the PB1000 Pro somewhere at the back of your room to compensate for the response. Now, if you need to apply EQ to the PB1000 Pro to accomplish that, you can do that with just the PB1000 Pro. because it has 3 bands of parametric EQ built into it that you can manually adjust. So the odds of you needing a mini DSP to accomplish the goal of good uniform response at your seats, it's really low. It's only going to be in the scenario where no matter what you do, those 3 bands of parametric EQ in the PB1000 Pro are not enough and cannot compensate, and you must separately EQ the front sub.
Right.
Like, the chances of that being the case are really low. I wouldn't get it ahead of time. I would go through the setup of your dual subs with what they have to offer. And if you're like, there is this one gigantic problem that there's no way to fix without a mini DSP, okay, now it's time to get one. But I wouldn't get it ahead of time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, basically what you're trying to do with Rob's 12-step guide is get, even response from all the different
uniform response.
measurements.
That's the goal
uniform, not even. Uniform response from all the different. So that if it's loud in one seat, it's loud in another seat at that same frequency. If it's quiet in one seat, then it's quiet in every seat at that one frequency. So that your Odyssey can do what it needs to do, or whatever room correction can do what it needs to do. I just don't see any reason to. Definitely not beforehand, like Rob said. Definitely not beforehand, and especially with SVS's app now, you can just sit there at the couch.
That's right. Because once you've added that, you've got a lot of capability built into that 1000 Pro sub. Like I say, the odds of you needing the mini DSP to go beyond that, really, really low.
Raul in Mexico. So Raul has a home theater set up in one room with a nice Andrew Jones Pioneer speaker setup, but for his family room, he just wanted a 2.1 system to improve upon the TV speakers. He's picked up an inexpensive Insignia stereo receiver. It doesn't even have a subwoofer output. He got a monoprice SSW12 sub. The super slim form factor is great for the family room, and thankfully it has speaker wire inputs and outputs, so he can take the stereo signal from his Insignia receiver. Now he needs a pair of bookshelf speakers. A lot of the prices in Mexico are sort of unreasonable compared to buying them in the US, and he doesn't want to venture out to shop in person right now. I don't blame you.
Indeed.
So he's limiting himself to what he could find on Amazon Mexico. He can't find the Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers at a reasonable price anymore, and he'd ideally like to keep the price around $200 USD for the pair, although he's willing to up the budget if it's only the only way to get something worthwhile. These are the options he found. The monoprice MP65 for $107, the Fluence SX6W for $185, the Polk T15s for $190. Then for over $200, he found the Yamo SO803 for $300, the ELAC Debut 2.0 for $345, Cambridge SX60 for $350. So can we offer a suggestion for him? He'd be fine with a small step down from this Pioneer speakers if that keeps the price under $200. Otherwise, if he's going over $200, he'd like a noticeable step up in sound quality. What should he get? Noticeable step up is not on this list, I don't think. The ELAC
They're certainly different.
There's different. I don't know that there's a step up. I'm drawn to the ELACs, and I might.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
You like the most neutral, accurate sound. So that is the most neutral, accurate speakers on that list.
Okay. So this is the reality right here. Okay. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Anything you buy on this list is going to be better than what you had before. Okay. It's all going to be better.
Well, yeah, it's going to be better than TV speakers. Okay.
TV speakers. So you will be able to hear better than you were able to hear before. So the question I would ask myself is, am I buying speakers for this 2.1 system, or am I buying speakers that I'm going to put in my other theater and then take the Pioneer Andrew Jones ones and put them in here?
Oh,
because
I see. Yeah,
you could do that.
Right.
And, yes. Then what I'm angling for is for you to up your budget.
Go for those ELACs. Go for the
ELACs. Put the ELACs in the home theater. Take the Andrew Jones Pioneers. Put them in here.
I see.
Bob's your uncle.
Sure. So I mean, I can certainly back the performance of the ELAC Debut 2.0. It is more than he ideally wanted to spend. But out of that group, those are the best speakers on your list. So that's that much. Now, could we hit the budget that he wants? It's just a pair of speakers in there. Now, the Fluence that you mentioned at $185, those aren't bad. Like, are they the be-all, end-all speakers? Are they as good as the ELAC Debut 2.0? No, but they ain't bad. For the under $200 crowd, that is absolutely the only one out of the choices that you mentioned that I would consider. But they're not bad. They'd go pretty evenly toe to toe with your Pioneer Andrew Jones. So you're like, okay, they're under $200. They're gonna get the job done. I would have no big problem with giving those a try. You know, when it's just to replace your TV speakers, I think you'd be pretty reasonably happy with that. I wanted to make a comment about the Yamaha S803s because a lot of people really do like their sound because they have a smiley face curve. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's purposely designed. It is easy to see in any measurements. They got a smiley face curve, but you know what? There's a reason why lots of speakers have a smiley face curve, because a lot of people like that sound. It makes the highs sound more detailed. It makes them sound bigger than they are because the bass is also tipped up. The mid bass is also tipped up. There's nothing wrong with liking them. And in terms of, these are for my TV speakers, it enhances the consonant sounds in dialogue a little bit because they got that smiley face up at the top. They sound a little bit bigger and fuller because they got the smiley face curve at the bottom. Like, there's nothing wrong with liking those. So I wouldn't be against considering them. They look the nicest. Looks-wise, they win by a country mile. They absolutely outwardly look the nicest. So I'm not against giving those a try. They're over the budget you were aiming for, $300. But in terms of, like, you're going to hear something that maybe if you're the type of person who likes a smiley face curve, they're going to sound really pleasing to you. So that's how I would put it to you. I wouldn't knock them out. For me personally, I wouldn't choose them because I want kind of like ruler flat accuracy. So I'd go for the ELACs. But
I just did a quick search and you can see the smiley face.
Oh, heavens,
curve.
Yes.
It's quite obvious.
Oh, yeah. And that's by design. That's not accidental that
and there's
they did
nothing
that.
wrong with that. Like Rob said, there's nothing wrong with that. And in here, maybe that's something you want. You know,
oftentimes
maybe you want a little extra bass and a little extra treble because you're in a big room and you want to make sure your dialogue is intelligible and that you get a little bit of impact out of that bass.
Yep.
Maybe that's what you want.
When it's TV speakers, that smiley face curve can sound really pleasing. It makes the dialogue sound easier.
I wouldn't be against you ordering the Yamos.
Yeah.
And especially if I don't know what your Amazon return stuff is over there.
Right.
So if it's free return shipping like it is here, I would order them and stick them in here just to see that. Hey, I know these aren't accurate speakers, but maybe they're going to be inaccurate in a way that's good for this room.
Exactly.
And I would consider ordering them and trying them out and see, just to see.
There, so we narrowed you down from 6 to 3.
There you go. But if you want to spend a little bit more money, I'm sure we can come up with something even better. I'm just saying. Just saying. Steve found a TV stand that he likes. He's seen it in person, and the looks and build quality are what he's after. However, he isn't sure about the center speaker shelf within the cabinet. The cabinet doors are slated wood. If the center speaker is inside and the wood doors are closed, do we think they will block or muffle the sound too much? What are our thoughts? So this is a kind of a modern design. It's just a platform on top for your TV, and then there's 4 doors. The 2 in the middle open out to either side, and the 2 side ones, of course, open out to their sides as well. And there's a center speaker shelf there, but there's slats in the front. It's either going to be speaker grill cloth or just nothing in order to let the sound through. So will they block or muffle the sound too much so that you can't hear it at all? No. Will they
hear
make a
sound?
Yeah. Will they make a difference in the sound that is negative? Yes.
Yeah, well, 100%. Particularly if you actually center the center speaker, because the tweeter is going to be behind the vertical edges of those doors. It's a solid surface, so you'd have to offset your center speaker inside,
which would be fine, but it would just
be okay.
Yeah,
you're not going to see it with the doors closed.
So these are your options to me. If you really love this thing, if you love it, then your option is open the doors when it's
critical listening time.
Yeah, whenever you're using it, or basically raise your TV on top somehow with a shelf or something and put it on top.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a shelf. You can get one of those universal TV stand mounts that uses the Visa brackets on the back and then just connects those to a pedestal stand. I actually really like those in a lot of cases because even if you just have a sound bar, so many TVs today are so low slung that they have no room to put anything below their bottom edge. And those universal TV stands that just use the Visa mounts, I like those a lot. So if this were me and I were buying this stand, because I have got no beef, you found a stand that you love the looks of it and it's got a really good design as far as ventilation and wire management and stuff goes. Like that's great. I got no problem with that. I would put the center speaker on top, on the very top, and I'd get one of those universal TV pedestal stands.
Yeah, I think that's what I think I'd be on the same boat there. How much time do we have left? Yeah, we got time for one more. Mark. First up, Mark got the little 2-channel Fosse amplifier to expand his Onkyo RZ730 receiver to a 7.2.4 configuration. He wasn't sure about it the first time he stumbled across it, but after we talked about it, he decided to give it a try, and it's been great. So now he's got a question. He intends to use 4 SVS Prime elevation speakers or possibly 4 of Klipsch's wedge-shaped speakers for his Atmos positions eventually. But for right now, he just wants to get 4 super cheap, small speakers to throw up there. He's come across various little cube speakers that are rated about 50 watts. Typically, strangely, most of them seem to be rated about 6 ohms, which is not that strange, but let's go on. If you were to get those and try to make their volume levels match with the 7 main speakers, will they survive? His Onkyo receiver is rated to output more than the 50 watts specified. Will giving those little cube speakers a higher crossover help, maybe 120 hertz? What do we advise? Yeah, okay. I advise that you not buy little cube speakers.
Yeah.
but let's answer the question as asked.
Yeah.
If I have a receiver that can put out more than 50 watts, but these things are only rated at 50 watts, am I going to blow my speakers up? So the answer is no. These speakers are going to be close to you because they're going to be Atmos speakers, going to be above you. So if you took the speakers, these little cube speakers, and you put them across the room from you in a very large room, and you tried to bring them up to reference volume,
Right.
you would break them.
You'd probably damage them. Yeah.
You could probably damage. That is not going to happen in this application.
Yeah.
So
And
just because your receiver is put...
Yeah.
Yeah, like what I was about to say, power is drawn,
well,
not pushed.
It's not.
You know,
neither of those is
requested.
a true statement, but
it's quite requested.
There's a difference
from
in
the
potential, and it just tries to even it out. Just because something is rated at say 100 or 200 watts, it doesn't force that into the speaker.
It's like you get 100. It's like 105 watts continuous all the time, and then if the speaker uses it, it uses it. That's not how it works.
No.
So that's just what's available.
Yeah.
So I would save my money on this and just wait to get the speakers I wanted.
There's
if
that.
It were me.
I will say I think there's an option that's, I mean, it's real cheap and it's actually really convenient. I've talked about this, but this is actually a different one altogether. So Monoprice, it's a 5.1 speaker package, so you're getting a teeny tiny little bass module and a center that you will not use. You're just getting it for the 4 little satellites, but it's $100 for the entire speaker package. And what I actually kind of like about it is those little satellites, they're 3.5-inch drivers with a 3/4-inch separate tweeter. But they actually come with wall mounting brackets. So like it's got everything you need for $100. So even if you considered that you're only using the 4 satellites out of the 5.1 package, that's, $25 a piece. I don't think you're gonna get much cheaper than that. And heck, they threw in a bass module and a center for you. Now you're gonna cross those over at like 150 hertz because that's about as low as they play for Atmos. That's fine.
It's fine.
Totally doesn't matter. I'd be fine dropping $100 on those ones. Let me see if Monoprice always gives you a weird model number, so let me see if I can find the actual model that it's called. But let's see. Product number 8247. Just so memorable, but that's what it is.
Rolls
it's the
off the
Monoprice 5.1 channel home theater satellite speakers and subwoofer for $100.
All right. I say save your money. Stan has especially this. Okay. I'm gonna say something different now. All right. So I would either save my money and get the speakers I really want to go up there, or I would buy this and then realize very quickly that I really don't need to spend any more money to get Atmos above me because Atmos is really So if you decide to go this direction, be prepared that when you do decide to spend more money, you can put them up there and you go, I don't.
It wasn't that big of an upgrade changing
the
speakers?
Really worth the money? Because that's what's going to happen. So, yeah. That's kind of there. All right, Stan. Stan has a 4K resolution TV, but it does not do HDR of any kind. He really only uses it for sports. Does HDR make a big enough difference with sports broadcasts that it would be worth upgrading his TV? I don't watch live sports because I have stream everything. I guess it would. I would hope that the Olympics, because they're actually going to do 8K, I think, in Korea.
That's right, and Japan.
And Japan, right? So I would hope that the Olympics would be the litmus test for this.
Right. The handful of NFL games that have been done in HDR, people have been quite impressed by those, although that very much depends on which broadcaster is doing it, and it's not all of their cameras. It's only some of their cameras are broadcasting in 4K HDR. The selection right now is still pretty limited, although, I mean, the one that seems to do it the most is soccer. Soccer seems to have the most HDR broadcasts. So if you're a big soccer fan, there's quite a few of those. It's hard for me to say just because the amount of content is kind of limited that it's like super duper worth it. However, you can get like a TCL 6 series, right? Which is really not that expensive, and it hits 1,000 nits, and it's like a really darn good look. It has no right to look as good as it does, honestly, for the price that they're charging. It's like kind of remarkable. Now, the thing was, if you're like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it whole hog, and I'm going to get an OLED.
Right.
I mean, even there I can justify it because it's not even the HDR part. It's like if you're going to do it whole hog and you get an OLED, the OLED just looks so much better for everything.
Just better.
that I can justify it for that. Like it makes your standard dynamic range sports broadcasts, you might have trouble telling them apart from genuine HDR because it just looks so much better. So either way, I think you can, like, it's not so much justifying buying a new TV. It's that if you bought a new TV and you either went price-wise low end and got a TCL 6 series where, like I said, like it has no right to look as good as it does, or you went whole hog and you got an OLED, like either way, I think you would be like, it's not even the HDR, it's just this looks a whole lot better and I'm really quite satisfied that I spent the money. So the HDR is almost an aside. It's like a side benefit where I'm like, that's not even the real reason to get the new TV, but you got it and it's great and you've got awesome options either way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you bought a new TV today, Stan, that you would not be disappointed.
Yeah, there's a lot of really inexpensive options out there these days, and OLED is, hopefully OLED prices will start coming down even more once TCL gets into them in a couple of years. All right. Who we got left?
We have Terry, who, oh boy, that's going to be fun to dig into first next week because, yeah, it's a brand that's sort of up and coming on the forums, and there's a whole history behind this brand, and it's gonna be fun to dig into. So a little tease for that. And Michael, who we mentioned, that's our YouTube guy, our
hey,
self-proclaimed noob. We know he's watching on YouTube. Sorry we didn't get to you this week, Michael, but it has been explained to him. First in, first out. We answer in the order in which they are received. So you're early on the list for next week, Michael.
Yeah. All right. This is AVRant Podcast, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Ari for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and leaving us a PayPal donation, as well as our 124 patrons over at patreon.com, including Bertrand. Thank you, Ari. Thank you, patrons.
Yes, indeed. Ari, thank you so much for the PayPal donation, and patreon.com/AVRant podcast. For anybody who would like to sign up for an automatic monthly donation, thanks very much to our 124 patrons over there. Bertrand, thank you for continuing to be one of them.
I thank Eric and Jason for talking us up sort of to SVS, and Carrie for the bike information, as well as the notes of gratitude from Kevin, Andrew, Ari, Raul, Mike, Stan, Terry, and Michael.
I was thrown off because one of those is Mark.
Did I say Mark? Oh, did I say Mike? Sorry. Mark.
But I'll go back and say Eric and Jason, thanks for talking us up to SVS. Carrie, thanks for giving Tom advice on his bicycle purchases. And then Kevin, Andrew, Ari, Raul, Mark, Stan, Terry, and Michael. I almost messed myself up because I was thinking about it, but thank you all very much for the notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going. Really do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. We appreciate it so much.
For AVRant, I'm Tom Mantry.
And I'm Rob H. Now stay in and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.